You're alive.
Okay. We're going to call the September 13th meeting of the Council Rock School District Finance Committee to order. First item of business, we'll go around and introduce ourselves. Mary Ann, can you start?
Mary McKee, School Board.
Andy Block, School Board.
Denise Brooks, School Board.
Matt Federickson, IT Director.
Robert Berger, Superintendent.
Bob Reinhardt, Director of Business Administration.
Andy Rowe, Transportation Supervisor.
Jerry Rupp, School Board.
Mark Vilik, School Board. All right, we have some changes to the posted agenda. We're going to move item 1, the discussion items A and B, to the end of the agenda while we wait other board members. And we're going to start with item 2, update of the bond competitive bid results.
Keep going. Yep, that's it.
Here?
Yep. This is Bob Reinhardt. I just want to quickly go through a transaction that we made last month that you had authorized previously, where we issued debt to take our variable rate debt, about $5.1 million of variable rate debt, finance that into a fixed rate debt. With interest rates going up on the short end, the shorter maturities, our variable rate debt was costing more money, and we were concerned that cost was going to continue to go up, and we believe this was the sweet part of the yield curve that we should really move on it now, and I think we got very good results from that. I'm just going to go over some statistics. We actually issued $4.8 million par value of bonds. If you look through the document, you'll see that there are some bonds that we issued at a premium. Therefore, although the par value of the bonds were $4.8 million, you'll see that we got more money than that. And if you look at your handout, it's page 15 that you will see. And if you go up to the top, you will see the par value of the bonds are the $4.8 million. Do you see that? Then you'll see the original issued premium. That is $435,000. So we actually got proceeds of $5.2 million. So if you look at it, you may say the par value of it isn't as much as what you're refunding this because we sold bonds at premium. Why do bonds get sold at premium? Because the coupons that are being issued with those bonds are higher than the market price. So people pay more above the par value because they're getting a higher interest rate throughout the life of the bonds, if you understand that. Okay? Everyone get that? That's really what the rationale is for the way it was handled and why par value is less than the total value of the bonds that we refinanced. It's a very short issue, 6-year maturity, so that means over the next 6 years, everything we have is going to mature. Many times you hear about bonds being 20 years, 15 years, or whatever. But these are very end of what we did. I will tell you the variable rate bonds did excellent for us over the period of time that we had them. Much lower interest rates than what we would have paid in fixed rate bonds. If you look at the true interest calculation, that is how the calculation made to determine which bid is better. When you start getting premiums in, discounts in, issuance costs and things like that, it's very difficult to compare one value to another value. So this is a very complex calculation, but that is how you evaluate the bids. So if you look at that, I would tell you that we received a 1.87. So over the length of the bonds and the maturities, that's what we paid overall when you look at the premiums, the issuance costs, and everything else. Very good amount. We currently budget 4%. That isn't what we paid on the bonds, but in each budget, we want to make sure we have enough in there. And if there'd be ever a interest rate increase, we need enough to be in there. So when I look at that, we save, based on the 4% what it is now over the next 6 years, we're able to show that we're going to have need less in the budget or be able to use that money for additional borrowings for almost $270,000, okay? But that is the difference between the true interest calculation and a 4%. For instance, the last payment we made on our variable rate bonds was 2.52%. So if you look, you will see that the interest rate that we got on these are better than that. And as the Fed Reserve increases interest rates, that number will only go up. Mark, you look like you have a question.
No, I just want to clarify, because I think the intent might be a little confusing for the public. I think you're saying what we got on this, and I'm not being critical, I just want to be clear. The 1.87, the TIC rate,
Yep.
is what we're going to be receiving, or what we're going to be paying.
Yes, it's going to be paying.
And when you say what we got on it, that's what the bid result was, right?
That's what that result right there, yes.
So rather than a variable rate, which today is 2.52, which will inevitably go up in the future, we budgeted for, now we're locked in for the next 6 years at 1.87.
Yes,
It sounded a little bit to me, maybe nobody else, that when we got that, it sounds like we kind of sold that, and it's a little confusing when you're
yes,
talking about.
I can understand that. What I wanted to talk to you about is internet auction bid stats. And if you would go to, page 8, you will see there are 8 underwriters that were interested in our bonds. From the high of 2.09, that was their final bid, we got all the way to 1.87. If you look at the final column on the right, this is an auction bid. So once someone beats the bid before, there's 15 minutes where they have to beat it. If there's a bid that beats that, then they add on another 2 minutes. And if you look at that, 86 bids were made for these bonds. And if you look at where you could say it actually started at like 2.4% if you saw the bids, and you can look at the bids here, and you'll see some of them very high. We did very, very, very well. I just want to point that out. And you should be happy with the decision you made in regard to the bond issue.
I have never seen one of our auctions go for 27 minutes or 26 minutes, whatever this was, and the lead turned 21 times. That they turned the lead 21 times. That's remarkable.
We have a very good name in the bond market.
Well, the market is starved for quality bonds. There's no doubt.
And we could talk, I'm not going to talk about it tonight, but you should really read our credit rating reports. Because it's very, you'll see the things that they're pointing out about any negative trends and positive trends. One of the things they talk about is our reserves are less than the reserves of most of our peer group, meaning our fund balance, although we think our fund balance is good, most of our peer group has higher reserves. But we do have good economy here and things like that. It's just something, it's in pretty layman terms, I think, that if you want to read this, it tells you about what they think.
But let's take a moment on that, which is
Yeah.
our reserves are less than they had been in past years. And it's by design. It's not that it's less because it had to be less, it was less because it was spent down to be responsible. Yes?
Yes, all this is saying, Jerry, our peer group generally has higher reserves than us.
As a percentage of overall budget.
Agreed. But my point is, we have done that by design to spend it down, which also has avoided litigation such as was in Lower Marion, where they put money into reserves and people said you taxed us too much. So.
I will tell you that I pointed another school district out to Mark and Andy just to show the type of reserves. If you look at a Downingtown school district, Downingtown, you may not think it's a fairly wealthy school district, but you would never think that they have unbelievable reserves compared to us. For instance, we worry about moving $3 million into the capital reserve each year for the next year's projects. If you look at Downingtown's last year's financial statements, they had $113 million in their capital reserve. In their debt service fund, they had $53 million. Their debt is down to, remember, it was like $50 million. So when you look at us, we are where we are, but it's extreme when we talk about it. It's not just a little bit. They moved $18 million out of their general fund into these reserves last year.
I have a question, and excuse me if this is a rookie question, but
Yep.
I'm a rookie. As I look through the bids from the underwriters, it looks at times as though certain of them were actually bidding against themselves. Like UBS is very often coming in behind itself with a lower bid. Am I correct in seeing that?
What's happening is UBS, there's a bidder that came in low. Now UBS is taking 4 tries to beat that bid. So they are bidding against themselves, but they're still not the low bid. So you'll see that a lot where
Yeah.
they're just trying to
Yes.
beat that guy and they put it in, oh, we didn't get it yet, we're gonna try again.
They're fishing. They're fishing for bottom.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure that they have the exact calculation of the true interest calculation, but that does it automatically online. I watch these every time and they're thrilling to me. But it's interesting just watching what goes on. And I get excited by the number of bids. And you can see the email between Zach and I at the end of it, like,
Why would you want to give that up? You did it 5 years.
yeah.
Yeah. You can watch it too for free.
Thanks for that explanation.
It also shows the value of doing the auction bid system instead of the negotiated deals that were common in the past.
Yes.
We haven't done those in 17 years.
Yeah, just saying that it used to be, right, that you would have a negotiated bid, you'd end up at 2.4, and it is what it is. Great.
Okay, that was,
And one other point might be worth making since you put it out there relative to Downingtown. Unless I'm mistaken, I believe their facilities are generally speaking, much younger and much better shape. And B, the influx they've had to drive revenues up in the recent past has been much more significant than ours. So they're in a much different situation, I think, relatively speaking. We find ourselves, I mean, we've got this anchor of facilities, capital improvement needs that we don't have a choice but to fund. And if it weren't for that taking everything up, we might have the ability to look a little bit more like them. So people need to understand, to Jerry's point about how we plan for expenses really well in the past.
I am not putting us down at all.
No.
I am
I'm not
trying to-
trying to say we've done a really good job. Our challenges are much more significant, and we have to run a much tighter ship in order to do what we do.
Yes.
Right.
You know, that's not putting us down. I just want you to know the reality.
That way,
I'm sure.
How does their budget compare to ours?
How big is it? It's right around ours. It might be a little bigger than ours. Maybe. For some reason, I'm thinking 253 million. Ours is 240 million, something like that.
And they probably have 1,000 more kids than we do.
So would it be a worthwhile exercise at some point, let's put more on everybody's plate to compare Council Rock and other districts like that to see if there's some efficiencies that we can pick up from what other people do? We talked about it with Central Bucks, I know before, but from a financial standpoint.
I think, I think I know where some of the efficiencies would be that I'd want to make sure before I state it, at least publicly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something we can work on over the next couple
Yeah.
of years, just to see, so we can always learn from other people.
But it's a little bit like looking at how somebody else runs their household too, because there's so many variables in terms of what your facilities age is. It's not invalid to do it. It should actually be something that many of our business managers do on a regular basis. Confer with one another that it's a wealth of experience, but your mix of special ed, your mix of building facilities, your mix of contract status, all these things figure into it.
Well, 80% goes to G&A. You've got a program. It's going to make a meaningful difference. I mean, based on, every time we come up budget year, this is what Peters is doing, and this is, what taxes are doing. That means we're finding efficiencies every year over time. So it's only in programming. So we got to just figure out, is there a better way to do what it is we do and still get a better outcome? I don't know how to answer that. That's
I'll tell you, having come from Chester County and having been in a neighboring district of Downingtown, we are, I think, very efficient. relative to the typical Chester County district. That said, I think there's always something to be gained from benchmarking and having that kind of conversation and collaboration with peers. But, you know, just given what our fixed obligations are relative to our overall budget, I'm actually pretty impressed, having had a different perspective previously.
So you budgeted 4%, and so you're what, 2.1% for the good
Yeah.
versus where you budgeted this.
If you think about it's about what, 17.9 million now? We have it. What that does is our actual debt service would have been up a little higher, closer to that, or over that, and that's dropping our actual debt service, so we have room if we need to borrow money, to do that. Or we could reduce our budget, but as Andy has said, we still have projects that we have to do. So although it's not a huge number, it's something that will help us in the long run. Okay? Yep, this is gonna be a stop-loss renewal, I just wanna explain it to you. And I know, from my emails that, you know, ultimately we're saving about $79,000. I need to give strong kudos to Gallagher, who put this together, and you will see as we go through this. They marketed it to, many, different carriers. You'll see all the people that, declined. Quote, uncompetitive, quote, competitive.
What would be a reason, I mean, you got the majority decline, what would be a reason for declining? You know, like school districts or?
In the past, before, what is it, ACA, Affordable Care Act, there was $1 million limit on losses. Today, there could be a single loss now of $7 million on one claim. And I will tell you, there's a school district this happened to. So a company's book of business, their profits were lost in one claim. And that's one of the big reasons for it. People are getting out of the business.
Aren't we as an entity only limited to $500,000 exposure?
We are limited
Liability.
$275. They pay the rest after that.
Are you talking
So
about?
the stop loss carrier is responsible for everything.
Wait. Are you talking about sovereign immunity, which would be in terms of litigation liabilities? Yes. We have a $500,000. This comes to light in the Pennsbury issue, where the Pennsbury bus ran over somebody. That is a tortious liability, right? Yes, we have that limit. This is not a tortious, this is liability we take on as an insurance carrier for healthcare. It's a different. Okay.
The specialty drugs are causing a big issue because, so it's all those things that are causing, this is going to change greatly, I believe, in the next few years. Because there's so much exposure for these insurance companies. They may start going and saying, okay, we'll cover you after $275. We're only paying 70% of it, you're paying the other 30%. And there's going to be some type of co-insurance there, I believe, and it's going to put us to more risk. Long-term care insurance is going the same way, that these companies had such great losses because people are living longer. I think this is the same thing that's happening here. Okay, the current deductible, $275. This is what we were paying, yes, this is what we're paying today. Their initial renewal was this, went up 25%. So they went out to Sun Life, and we had a great year this year. I don't think they paid anything out. We've had a really good year, and they still said, nope, 25%. They went back to them and said, you're going to lose the client unless you reduce. They said, okay, 22%. Now, alternative one, Reliance Standard, they went up 6.6%. And we're going with Highmark, they went up 4.9%. A good thing about Highmark is they are a Independence Blue Cross company. Therefore, their systems talk together. So Blue Cross said, we'll put something in too. So go to the next one, page. They said, and it's hard to see here, of this amount, they were reducing our administrative costs anyway, but they reduced it, and I think it's in this amount now, to, $1.50 a month per contract less. Therefore, although our, self-insurance costs went up 4.9% or whatever, with that, we actually reduced our total costs in those categories by $80,000. You see that? I wanted to explain that to you. You guys are gonna approve the contract, and you'll see that I signed it all as of September 1st. That was the new stop loss carrier stuff that's going on. Does everyone understand that? Okay.
Could you go back 2 slides at this
We're
point?
back to the slides.
Help me understand the line, the contract basis incurred versus paid. It's the 4th line from the top, 24, one, paid over 12, paid over 12, and then 24. Help me understand what that is.
I believe this is just what you paid over the 12-month period. I believe that they have claims runouts for the next 2 years. If it's related to that thing and it was incurred in June, and then they had to pay it off till next June, you would still get credit for that. I believe that's what it is. If that is not it, I will let you know.
All right, I still understand. All right.
See, you incurred it. You know what, let me get it, that's backwards in what I said, but I believe that's what it has to do with.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna hand this out, and Andy didn't expect to be here, so, he's here to answer questions, but, this is, his memo that was in the packet, and I just taken information about that. 9-passenger van bid, we, had a bid, Andy's information shows that the van fleet is aging 13 vehicles, average age 18.38. This is all in the memo. Average mileage is 79,727. The high is 165,000 miles. The fleet use, you'll see 4 home to school, 6 Achieve, 1 North community-based instruction, and then 2 are spare or shared for coaches and other people that need to take them. And the bottom line is the low bid we're recommending for $27,400.
Sir.
He hasn't read this for months.
I wrote it down.
Yeah.
I have a lot of that. I'm just checking, we had gone through this before, and we did decide to buy a wheelchair van for Achieve. Is that satisfying their needs at this point, that they just need the one? That was, the issue was, now that, we had one student specifically who did use a wheelchair. I don't know if we have anyone right now, but we had others with limited mobility for whom getting in a regular van was a problem. Are we meeting the needs with the one van we have in the wheelchair accessible van for Achieve? Because, just let me clarify, because other than that, then we wound up renting, or leasing, or, you know, using a first student van, which seemed kind of impractical because some of the visits that the Achieve program we're doing were not on a schedule that worked well with a leased van, a rented per trip van. That was a concern.
To answer that, Jerry, I don't believe at this time that the wheelchair vehicle is used for wheelchair needs. It's used because of the seating capacity at this time to get in and out. They have so many community-based instructions. But when I was joining the team, I asked the question, why is there difference here? They said it was for a student. That student ended up leaving the district.
Right.
And from there, we used it temporarily with one of our home school drivers to get a low head count. And now they're just using it specifically for Achieve, but not for wheelchair function. So that could change.
All right, then we don't need another one. That was just my concern, which was, it was segregated.
It was an extracurricular, and he needed transferred work.
There were a number of opportunities around that needed to.
And when we call field trips, are usually going with a larger group.
Correct.
We would provide the wheelchair vehicles, so they can all ride together.
So what are you asking for? You want a new van?
Yes, this one is, not, this one's a little bit different, and we're not getting, the bus along, it's just, I have to. And of the, retrofitted ones, and some of them come with higher, ongoing expensive running costs, the rust, the wear and tear. At this time, Ford Transit has a different vehicle out there that are more on the road, competitive prices, also higher MPG. So this will be a benefit to the district, I think. Ongoing or recurring, ongoing expenses should be lower, hopefully, with the newer vehicles that we bring.
You find regular or CNG? Any thoughts of CNG? Any thoughts compressed? That's our compressed natural gas sitting out there. that-
You know, with propane, we have not.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I
You're right.
guess they could put propane in this.
Haven't put much thought to it yet, but something, that we can, we see what other districts are doing. I know our old vendor Rose was, retrofitting their fleet vehicles for their employees on propane. They found, I just like to see what else is out there.
I was just wondering, it was, and we stayed away, last question, I promise. We stayed away, 15 passenger vans were common a few years ago, and it got to be a problem from certifications of drivers and from the safety things. We've kind of eliminated the 15 passenger vans, they became a little less stable. There's always an issue about the driver, they need a CDL or not to do those.
CDO required vehicle, and, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it's something much higher cost. You know, that's why I consider more of the bus line versus the van line.
Are you good?
Yeah, I have a question, if no one else does. We should note that Mr. Tate has arrived. It says this exceeds the specifications, so I'd like to know how it exceeds the specifications that we give. And then these vans are required to have inspection every 6 months, just like a school bus, right?
We inspect all of our fleet vehicles every 6 months, because we do transport students from the school and also do here. And, the part about exceeding is, when we put it out to bid, it's with the, state requirements, you know, the federal safety requirements, that's what they're saying, they're exceeding that as a manufacturer. I can probably get more details on that, just show you guys in what area are they exceeding the minimum.
They have seatbelts, vans, just
Yes, they do.
no seatbelts like the buses have.
Yeah, the way, I guess the easiest way to explain it for our fleet is the largest vehicles are 77 passenger buses, do not have seatbelts. Everything else does have seatbelts. So our wheelchair buses, which are smaller in size, have them. Our mini buses, which are 29 passenger, have them. And of course, all of our fleet vehicles that count for operate has seatbelts.
The vans, are there airbags in the vans? Do they have that kind of safety measure yet, or is that with the 9 pack?
Only in front. I have to look at what the Ford Transit has. It's a newer vehicle to us. They may have side impact bags. I would look more into that.
Is everyone good with this?
Yeah, let's also note that Ms. Marcellus arrived.
Okay, we'll go to this one, and then we're gonna start the big presentation.
And I just appreciate, by the way, I trust that we wrote the specs generically, so we'd be open to a few things, rather than, we had been,
Yep, we had a manufacturer spec.
right, now we write them as a utility spec.
And you're right, I believe I had that conversation with you 2 years ago, Jerry, that the more you look into our old specs, there's only one vehicle that really matches all, the specs. So we stripped it away, we went basically flooring, the seat configuration, it could have been a bench seat of 3, a 2-in-1 combination, didn't require a certain type of engine, we didn't need any of it, we wanted air conditioning, all the safety features, a capacity number of all that, and a certain type of flooring, just, you know, with wear and tear with our children.
So allowing us to do that, the $35,000, that was 27.
You know, the other year, we did get some vehicles and they had the aftermarket, the bus doors and the extra step on it. But, this is probably more of a real number that we'll see for kind of the, what's the the bid in the state.
The Pepin.
Co-stars?
CoStar, thank you very much.
The Pepin done?
CoStar's price.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's
It's not
Pepin
very
versus
much.
CoStar?
They're both state-produced technology.
Oh, okay.
CoStar is going through the general services of the state. Different,
So we're looking to have this on the consent agenda?
yeah.
Okay.
For board members. We're sitting here talking about CoStars and Pepin. These are two bidding strategies that the state has, that the state sets a price for some items, and then the administration can actually buy off those without going to bid. You can actually buy at that pricing without going to bid because it's the state bid it and got us a per unit fee. So we still do most of our items. We still do across our entire spectrum. Most of them, we still go to bid. But I think for our roofing, I think is actually off the Pepin.
It's, that might be CoStars also.
Okay.
And that is a hybrid way we do that. And Doug will have to get into the nuts and bolts of that better than me, because I'm not the person that knows it as well.
So the end of the story is, the reason I mention it is, sometimes on single unit buys, it would be cost prohibitive to go through the whole overhead administrative expensive. But when we're doing some of these larger buys, we still bid it because we find that we can save more.
Okay, so this will be on the next meeting's consent agenda unless there's any objection or any concerns around the table tonight. Just as a reminder, we can always have a discussion on pulling off that prior to the meeting if we need to.
And this is the last item for the agenda, and this is just a state requirement that you approve the bus routes. And you will see it's over 7,000 lines long of an Excel spreadsheet, and it gives you short descriptions, and it tells you where the stops are. It doesn't give the kids' names or anything on it, but it's a requirement. I think the only person that really reviews it closely is Jerry. In total, about 7,700 stops to and from school and 127 runs through the district.
It's not a fair statement. He's just the one that asked questions.
Sort that
I'll
out.
read every single line.
Really?
Is part of your presentation going to be how that these numbers relate to past years?
You are going to see that in a whole different way. It's not going to be based on this information. But this information results in what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yes.
Could you do me one favor? This is what I try and figure out each year, which is, can you give $5 the maximum number of students on the bus at any one time, and the maximum length of time, and the total run time for anyone, the longest run time for any one student? That's what it comes down to at the end of the day when we're really looking at it, to say, you know, that's why I'm going through the numbers. So since I'm not going to do that a lot longer, that's kind of what we're looking at as a board, because we get into challenges such as with Wrightstown that said, gee, these kids are going to be on the bus a long time. And I know, let's be very fair, this is the place to talk about it. We've made adjustments already because some of the run times were longer than anticipated, and you've already changed some bus runs to accommodate that. So that's how the board's vision on that can be eased, which is what's the actual planned capacity. Recognize the high school capacity will be a third of that in the second week of the year, and because the kids just don't go, but you have to run the bus, and the longest any one child is on the bus, and that's.
Could I just ask, Andy is still inundated with the start of the school year?
Immediate.
Okay, great.
And Jerry, would you want that locally for the district, by school?
Just by bus run, just by the bus, you know, bus 86 at the high school level. Here are the bus numbers, and here's the maximum kids on the bus, and the maximum time any one kid is on the bus. Because that's really what we're measured by, is how long is the longest kid on the bus.
So you want a calculation for 127 runs?
It's Excel spreadsheet. It's Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, 685.
Otherwise, I wind up doing
Take
it.
685 fresh looks for Jerry.
No. Okay, give me the data,
There you go. You're cheaper.
Understand, so the board knows this, it is an objective of ours to fill the bus up at least once during the day because of the way the state subsidy is calculated. So just know it's advantageous for us to have enough kids of the capacity because you get a better subsidy.
so they'll already have that number.
They usually have to go to high school, to your point, even though we go to 85 and 27 get on the bus.
And in our redistricting discussions, it was an important issue for parents, was not how long is the average kid on the bus, but how long is the longest kid on the bus. So it's the same number that would have to be generated at that point, I mean.
What I do want to tell you is that, we were responsible to Wrightstown. I just want to make this thing today that, Andy was inundated last week with everything else, and I said that I'd go out and, I'd run back to Andy if there's problems at Wrightstown or at, Richboro Middle. So I was out there every morning and every afternoon, and they called me the stopwatch guy because I was checking buses when they got there, when they left, and everything else. And I got to tell you, Andy and his crew did an outstanding job. There's always issues. Today I know there's a small issue, but it far exceeded, I have cold sores from worrying about this and being out in that, but I will tell you that, I give him all the credit in the world, because I was expecting parents coming up to me saying, what's going on and everything. His plan was great. Having the police officer at the exit, getting the buses out was terrific. Beth getting the kids on the bus and out before the car drivers, that increased our efficiency so much that I think kids were getting home probably earlier from there than they did from Wrightstown.
No, that's regular. That's
Pardon me?
standard operating procedure all year long.
That's right.
That's great.
Let me
Yeah,
also,
that was gonna be a big.
If their trends go the other way, we will be out there again, finding out the reasons, and we'll react to it. So understand that there could be this day, there's a sub driver, we have that no matter what. And they got messed up, or today, yesterday, someone got held up at, one of the, at the middle school. So things like that happen, but I will tell you, the plan has worked very well, much better than I expected. But please understand, with all this going on, like Andy's group doesn't understand how well I believe this year went. Every day last week, I went down and told them how great it is compared to what I've been accustomed to see. But they're still getting phone calls, and you can say the anger might not be as bad this year as last year, but I see a marked improvement.
And I do as well.
real, and all compliments, nothing in the way. Northampton Township has a school resource officer who was assigned at South. As part of his taken on duties, we really hired him as a school resource officer at South. His shift change involves leaving South to go to, Wrightstown at Richboro and managing the exiting of the buses. So that's something that Chief Clark and our school resource officer have put together on their own. That was not something, did we ask for that? I don't know if we have to ask for that, but they're doing it. They're cooperative on that. That's important. So I want to make sure.
And I will tell you, the lieutenant is also, the days he's off, the lieutenant said he's leaving his desk and he'll come out and do it himself.
Yeah,
So they've been
Wonderful
terrific with
cooperation.
it, because at first it was a little wavering, saying, I don't know how we're gonna do this. It is gonna cost us a little bit of money, because he's getting a little overtime. But you guys were made aware of that, and I'm glad you said yes, because I am so thrilled that this isn't a big problem, that we're not coming in today.
And the other thing, since we're talking about that area right now, is, Northampton Township is moving or extending, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, the school zone, which does not currently include, Wrightstown at Richboro Middle School. It is being extended. So I think it's hourly, it's out to bid right now. I think it's a bid process, which is a little delaying it, so the officers are maintaining the 15-mile-per-hour aspect of it by presence. But those signs will be moved down so that really it will be both elementary schools will be within the 15-mile-per-hour school zone, within the next couple of weeks. For right now, managed by presence of police officers. Because I've gotten complaints about it. So,
Can we go back to the front?
Yeah,
We're
go
on
back
it.
to,
not complaining.
Just before we move on, I will say that, like everybody, you get notifications on social media or email, and there's always issues. The issues have been dealt with very, very well, very quickly, and the response has been great, so that's nice too. I think the parents are treated with compassion and respect, and that's wonderful.
before you want to.
Bob, you're removing this, first student bus driver approval, right? We're not.
Yes, that's gone. And Jerry, you and I spoke about that a while ago. The Lancaster, General Auditor General, I don't know if you remember that they wrote him up and said that the school board had to approve all contracted drivers. And right now, Rob can't find anything legally that we have to do it, so I took it off.
Yeah.
At some point, there could be.
That's fine. I prefer that Rob resolve that first, because I don't want to have liability, our approval of it, because it imparts a certain amount of liability to us, where, back to your question before about sovereign liability, First Student is the insured agency.
The Auditor General will differ on that with you because of, he's putting Lancaster School District in a pretty tough spot on some things, I guess, because they had drivers that shouldn't have been driving. Andy has driver files and he's been watching them, so I think we're in good shape.
Let me say a quick one before you start. First of all, thanks for being here.
No problem.
We're right on time, just when we thought you'd get started on this.
Right around 7-inch.
Yeah, perfect. But no, seriously, thanks for being here. Thanks for providing this overview. I think you all know, as a board, Andy does a fabulous job for this school district from a customer service standpoint and so many other ways as well. He leads a very lean team, but a very high-performing team. And I would stack it up against any transportation department around. So he's going to give a presentation of some really good information, really good news. You're going to see areas where they have found efficiencies, areas where they have created efficiencies. And to me, what's really impressive is that in tandem with that, that you do have this high level of service that's being provided. So that you have elevated service and you have some of these efficiencies that are created that are reduced, resulting in reduced cost savings. It's a silver bullet. So good job, and I'm anxious for them to hear what you have to say.
By one moment of introduction, because people won't know who you are. And this is important, we talk about so oftentimes the bus transportation manager in a school district came there from being a bus driver, came up through those ranks. And I think it's important to highlight that Andy's experience is wholly different. He comes out of the commercial realm, unless I'm stealing something you're going to say, comes out of the commercial realm with managing truck fleets, and the intricacies of that. So it's a very much a commercial perspective and understanding that we talk about bringing the commercial business-like thought into it, not just the bus transportation perspective.
Absolutely, and I think that pays dividends for us all the time. And one of the ways that it'll do so is in terms of what the organizational structure is. So we're going to give you some things to think about here at the end of this presentation, because again, it is a very lean operation, and we might have some opportunities to, believe it or not, do an even better job down the road.
All right, thank you. That's half of my introduction, so I'll do the other half. First of all, thanks for having me. I know transportation right now, there's a lot more noise with it, but we're working on it and we're focused on improving it. So prior to coming here, as Bob said, and Jerry said, I came from the outside. Bob always reminds me I was one of 100, but the only person that never transported a human being. So my experience is 15 years in trucking. I worked for J.B. Hunt and Ryder, both very large trucking companies. I left Ryder as a senior director of operations, overseeing a lot of fleets for the use of dedicated business. That decision was easy. My daughter was starting kindergarten, and I couldn't travel 80% of the time. So I landed on my feet here, and it's been a great experience, wonderful quality of life, and I take everything I've learned from that experience I brought here. I was on a third-party logistics side, so I'm very familiar with First Student, how they price and how they operate. I did a short stint in HR for a year and a half, and we'll go into a bit about why the team is so important and some of the focus items I have around that. So today, we're going to go into kind of a snapshot of what we've accomplished in 3 years. We're going to also go into the research that was provided to us from the professionals that came for research, and then give you a little idea of what I believe the future should look like for us to maintain a high level of service and provide additional value down the road. So this is right here, it's kind of the past versus present. When I first got here, there was a supervisor myself. We had one router, and we had 4 part-time drivers coming in to assist with clerical work. I think at that time, it worked, but It didn't help us with the peak part of the day. So there was only 2 people there when the buses were going out in the morning and PM. And then the 4 drivers would come in during the middle of the day where it was nice to have their help, but their help would have been more used between 6 and 9 a.m. and of course during the peak hour time. Today we have 1 supervisor, we have 1 router, and 2 class 3 secretaries. And those secretaries not only handle transportation functions, but also registration and other business functions in the office. When I first started, one of the conversations I had with Bob was about so a lot of my time was spent observing and understanding what we were doing, why we were doing, and then from there addressing the issue. Once I looked at the staff, I realized that, we had to have the right people in the right seats. And for that reason, I went to the cabinet members and to the board about coming up with 2 full-time positions in the office to better serve the community out there. That was approved, and it's been a wonderful transition, and at the same time, it decreased the overtime just as predicted. So the office layout, culturally, I always just think about what am I walking into. I remember the first day, I walked down the basement, looking at the pictures from like 200 years ago, I'm wondering what's going on. I walk into my office, and everybody's facing the wall. So it was a very odd working environment. It was crammed with file cabinets, stacks of paper. The copy machine was like in 5th gear, spit things out the fax, out both sides of it smoking. So since then, we've opened up the whole environment. We all face forward to the front of where the door is. And as people come in, we greet them. It's not, we're looking at the wall and sending that person up there and the problem will go away. We have a much more open environment. We want to help each other. We want to collaborate. And I have the right team in the office that can take care of that now. Customer service. My life was all contracts prior to getting here. If we didn't have customer service, our customers would just rip up the contract, say you're going out to bid, and it's a $10, $12, $15 million account. Customer service is huge to me. I remember my first few months getting all these other calls, and they already spoke to somebody, and they were upset the way they were spoken to, whether it was the word, the tone, the phrasing. But, it ended up with a 15-minute conversation with me apologizing. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Nobody wants to talk about it, but that is behind us now. We have people that come from an office environment, a customer service background, and we're able to walk through these difficult conversations in a much better way. Routing software, this was the first gift I received. I'll tell you that right now. I walked into this environment. I went from high tech to low tech. This map I looked at was white, and they told me there was hand-drawn lines. Farms were sold over the last 10 years, and I couldn't figure out where the house was. There was address ranges, if it was odd on this side, even on this side, and there might not even be a house there really at the end of the day, and they may not even live in the district home. This new software has.
And you remember when Andy came for this software and asked for permission to do this, and I have a story to tell you.
No. We had a different software. I didn't know where half these places were, and you couldn't zoom in. Now we have Google imaging, the address is on top of every roof. If they give me an address that's not real, we don't do ranges. If the county doesn't have it, then it doesn't exist. I'll drive out there, I'll look for it. We found some places on top of delis, and we're identifying the locations. Sometimes they don't exist. I fire off a message, and a different group handles that, and we move forward from there. So these maps are awesome. It helps us understand how big the dead end is with the cul-de-sac. I guess we can talk about now. There's been a lot of volume in that area. It also tells us how to get in and out of the neighborhood, what some of the hazards are. So it's been wonderful. Along with that, it comes with filter technology and all these other things. We store documents. I've actually given a lot of staff members access to it. Not everybody has eSchool Plus or student information, but what they can do is they get access to our external site, and they can see where the student lives, the stop. They can click on the tab to see where the map is in the event they need to help the driver get them there or drive them home from school. And they also have all the contact information that's inside of our student information system to get a hold of mom, dad, guardian, email, and phone number. So it not only helps transportation, but it helps the people that use our transportation.
And they have access on what type of devices for that?
Right now, it's through the computer. You can still use it through your phone, but I guess for our next conversation, they do have a mobile app, and I wanted to make sure that it was good before I presented the mobile app. But for the mobile app, we can all just see who's on the roster, which is critical. For example, earlier this week, we had a minor safety event where our bus hit a guardrail, 7 students on, no injuries whatsoever. Driver did the responsible thing, pulled over, called the police, we went to the scene. I had to print everything, drag it, give it to the police officer. With this new mobile app, I could just click, hand it to the officer, here are the age of the student, date of birth, phone numbers, names, forward to them, and just be done with it. Instead, I lose a few minutes that are critical minutes, printing, organizing, and then getting out the door. Our transportation website, embarrassing is probably an understatement of what I saw. They were selling your grammatical information. Basically, they reminded me of the first website that was ever out there. It was just, you scroll down, and that's what all the information was on one page. Now we've changed it, and the next slide will show you a little bit about it. It has resources, online forms. I mean, we're in 2018 now. It's a big improvement. I think people will start going there. We designed it based on the phone and tablet, because we know when parents are at the bus stop, that's what they're going to use to look it up. So the layout is focused for people using those types of devices. Contract performance, it was crazy what we had prior to me getting here, where, you know, we accepted no constantly. We accepted weak excuses on why they couldn't perform 85% on-time service. I asked them to do an on-time service report. They told me they didn't know how. I created one, I sent it to them, and I had them fill it out. I quickly learned that we were probably running in the 80s, and contractually we should have been at 95, and then we kept on working together as a team to get to that number. And I think at this time, if we ran the numbers, we would be where we need to be. There's still room for improvement, but it's always moving, it's dynamic, what we do every day.
I will tell you that, we used to have quarterly business reviews, and it was uncomfortable with Andy and, the regional directors there and all that, when Andy's telling them, we need this, we need that, this person isn't doing what I need. And I will tell you, it's changed around greatly. In fact, I heard Andy, earlier this month at their startup, compliment First Student for their partnership with us. When I first got here, and we all complained about them, we all did, and we saw it, and I would now tell you that there's a partnership. They made mistakes and all that, but Andy gets the reasons why the mistake was made, and there's accountability. In the past, it was, well, this or that, and Andy didn't take that. So I need to say that he set an expectation, and they went up, and they're trying to meet it. I can't tell you they're always touching it, but they're much better than they were, and it is a partnership now.
Can you explain the difference GPS versus GPS Plus? I'm going to skip over, please.
Oh, yeah, so for GPS, we only use it just to see what happened or verify the driver's story or the parent, what they're telling us. And now we have the ability, we've integrated it in with our transportation software. We have a plan versus actual, which is very important, because sometimes I hear the driver came 20 minutes late, but it left school on time. It's running a stop. And then other times they're wondering why there's so much fuel burn, because they're taking the most familiar route to them, which may not be the most efficient route. So we have the ability to incorporate what we have on Zonar with Transfinder and look at different things. In addition to that, we can also have a driver do a route. We can see if it's better. We can copy that over to our routing system and ultimately execute that and move the other one.
It's not live. Is it live?
It's a minute behind, 30 seconds a minute behind.
Okay.
We would look at yesterday's run and how this is going, Jerry, versus what we have planned.
Can you locate a bus at any time, or it isn't?
Yes.
If I ask you where the bus was right now, you'll know it's transponder based.
It pings 30 seconds to a minute when I'm cold, and of course, if there's any, there's different triggers out there, motion start, motion stop, door opening, and those are the kind of things that we look at is, did they make a stop there? If not, they need to open the door and let the district know they're making that stop. So we can see the different events they call it in the Zonar.
That's how we were able to find out. Did we send that to everybody? The Wrightstown, how it progressed last week on the stop time and the last stop. Andy knew what last time the last stop was, and it improved to like 4:23 is the time I remember the last stop was, which is far better than almost 5 o'clock last year.
We had some buses at Wrightstown that I looked at the data twice, some were unloading completely empty at 4:10, 4:15. Of course, there's the ones that run long, still, we don't see any elementary unless you're going across the street doing 3 huge neighborhood stop. Just wanted to just touch lightly on non-transportation functions is, you know, in addition to the transportation we do, we qualify non-public students to do their transportation, so getting their proofs like it was registration. We also register every student at council. When they have the open houses at the elementary school, all that paperwork comes to me. We get really excited about keying that manually, so it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us. We're learning through. And then we also do Act 80, where the state is nice enough to send us 37,000 addresses, and this is based on what taxpayers believe their school district is in, or what school district they should pay into. And then we have an antiquated system in the state where we forward the ones that don't belong to us, like 500 Central Bucks and like 200 this way, and they do the same. This cycle goes on for about 8 weeks. And we've got a way to use the addresses in our system using maps, school locators, and things like that to remove a lot of them. In the past, what they did, this was a big hitter for overtime for the group, they would go through it manually and look on the map if it was in or out of district. They would fill out the paperwork by hand and then send it off. Now we're able to use Excel, figure out the ones that don't belong, copy and paste the ones that go to other districts, drop them on the tab, and populate all the forms. We print, I sign, it goes, it gets notarized, date, and we're good to go. So it went from, I would say, 100 hours to 15, 20. That's where technology.
That's the 5-digit number you put on your state tax return, and people are putting the wrong number down.
There's a call out to me relative to that meeting new expectations piece. It struck me as a relatively new board member when we signed that last contract, how cranky Wendy was, whoever else negotiated that contract.
Jerry.
We just got stuck with a 7.5% increase and really had nowhere to go. And I think that our ability, given the partnership you've developed, to get to a better outcome, even with a single bidder, right, where you don't have leverage, but because you've created efficiencies, not just for us, but for them, that maybe we can work to a mutually beneficial solution that's going to get the district and the taxpayers a better outcome next time around. So, you know, this is really good stuff to see.
And we engaged for in those conversations about an early renewal, we were touching with that last school year. Knowing that it's a 7-year term, we're finishing our 3rd, but I know there's opportunity to get language in there, and there's opportunity hopefully to reduce our overall cost by making some adjustments to the contract. At that time, they said they would take it up the leadership team. We still talk about it regularly. I think they're going to come back to the table, I guess, 18 months. It's probably a year and a half, and we'll definitely talk about it. There's something on the line. So this is our new transportation website. So, of course, the video's on the left right now. That was an amazing experience for me. So John Fernandez, Upper Mesa Fire Chief, approached me during Fire Safety Week and said we should be doing more to educate our students out there. He's in tune with all the fire events that go on. He's a fire safety investigator. He shared so many different stories with me. We partnered up with John Harlan, who was open to the idea, and then we identified the group of students, which was a 6th grade safety committee, and they were our students on the bus. And we planned and we planned and we planned, and finally we had 45 minutes with these students. We take as much video and capture all of our thoughts, and then Jennifer Stretch did an amazing job putting this together for us. What led us to that is when the fire marshal approached me, he asked me what safety videos do we have out there. So I reached out to all my Bucks County and Montgomery County peers in transportation. One person said they had a video, the rest didn't respond. I assumed they were embarrassed. And by the time I asked, by the time I got to the real truth, I think the video that the person said they had was probably from the 90s. There's nothing relevant. It wasn't going to capture the attention of our students, so we decided to do something on our own. So 2 times a year, we had a evacuation drill that's required by the state. It's almost the equivalent of the flight attendant on the plane. We're not letting kids jump out of that. It's more, this is what you do if it happens. This was our opportunity to show the students what to do and then have them do it, which if I was a student watching that, it would give me a level of comfort knowing that a kid similar to my age and size is able to do this rather than, not know which way to pull on the window, but get yourself not down. So that was wonderful. In addition to that, a lot of the questions that we get is the right time to get in that space, 45 minutes, 5 minutes. We put the PDE up there, and we also put some, frequently asked questions for Council Rock that we receive a lot. In addition to that, we put a staff directory there for both First Student and Council Rock. On Council Rock, we added our pictures. For First Student, they had a company logo on there. We moved our online change request form, our change request forms to an online form. Jennifer Stretch was instrumental in making this happen for us. And before we just had paper, people fill it out, back, scan, drop off in the front. And we had no way of just organizing who to take care of first. This online process helps us tremendously because we can actually complete it in sequential order when we received it versus in the past. The fax machine spits things out everywhere. People were inter-office mail. And this has really helped our office be able to get through all of them more quickly. And then, of course, we added mission statement. Coming from transportation, I think it's important to have our department add that, focus on safety and transporting students efficiently.
This is my baby. What I was trying to do is tell the financial story in regard to everything that's happened here. And I started with the year 2015-16. That was the year Andy came, Jack Panero was just leaving. This is the year Andy was learning. This is the year that Andy and the staff changed. Okay? So think of the 3 years and what was occurring at the time. As you can see, when Andy talks about excess overtime, you'll see the wages there. You'll see 17, 18 within staff increases and everything, and the change of the staff. We're still under by, 7% or something like that. I wanted to show you the benefits, because the benefits really show like our benefits went up a lot. But I wanted to make sure you saw what caused our benefits to go up as much as they did, is areas in it, like the retirement percentage went up significantly, so that's causing that. So if you look at it, back in 2015-16, our wages were 1.3 million. Right now they're 1.293. But look at some of the increases there, and you'll see that. Now I want to go over to the other side here, and this is all the other costs that we have. I'm going to really focus on this cost right here. And also the fuel costs, because there's a couple of things that I need to show you. But you will see from 2015-16, that's where we were, and we're there last year. I'm going to go into some things, but I also want to show you the fuel costs. It's going up and down there a little bit. One of the things that, another thing I got to give Andy kudos is that he found that because we have propane gas, a purchase of propane gas, we were able to have the IRS come out, look at us, and say, yes, you're an eligible organization to get a 50% excise tax credit for every gallon that you use transporting students. So what has happened here, and I have to figure out all of it, but this is definitely a result of 50 cents a gallon excise tax refund on our fuels. So every year, and I will tell you, there is some timing issues because they have to reauthorize it, and it seems like they reauthorize it late all the time, but every year it ends up coming in. So these are a little lopsided, but I wanted to give Andy credit with that side of it, where Jack Panero, originally we looked at it and he believed, because First Student was running the buses and we're purchasing the fuels, we weren't able to get it. Andy checked into it, the auditor, he came out with our financials, interviewed us and everything. We showed him the bills and all that, and the IRS auditor said, yep, and he stamped it, and we're getting it now. So it was a formal process that we went through to get that. So what I'm trying to show you here is operations-wise, you hear about everything, but now this is putting it into real numbers.
What's the contracted services drop?
Well, I would have to look at that.
That's the routing software. That is the.
I don't remember. Jerry, that's a real good question.
So you think that's offset the equipment purchase? I'm just, is that the two things that are remarkable are the equipment purchase, which I imagine we're getting the residuals of the 2 out years, but the contracted services.
You know what, Jerry? Let me tell you what that is. I don't know what it is right now. But, and then, you know, just, what, because we lease them, we have to provide that to the contractor. We have 2 bus depots, one, Newtown and one in Racine. Yeah, I'm interested in that, Jerry. What I'm gonna focus on now is the difference in contracted costs. Understanding from this year to this year to this year, every year, their compensation went up 2.5%. So although this shows a savings of $180,000, much more than that. Go ahead to the next slide. Okay. This is the 2015-16 flat line. Think about our budget again, okay? This is showing what the cost would go up to 2.5% if we were continuing operating at the service level as we did, okay? So you'll see the first year, this is our actual, the first year, there was some savings there because it didn't go up a full 2.5%. Then you'll see this year, it dropped significantly. So, go to the next slide and then put this together. So if you look here, this is the straight line. This is the actual. So you saw it's $149,000, $150,000 difference. However, because the base year and adding 2.5% each of those years, we would have operated at 10.5 million. We only operated at 9.8 million. So that's actually a savings of $656,000. Okay? So that is really the cost. Andy is now going to go over his analysis to tell you how that happened, because it's subtle differences, things that you and I probably wouldn't have thought could result in this.
All right, thank you, Bob. They can't see the numbers from back there anymore. So when I first got hired on, there was a router already in place, and the router was there in the second year. And it's one of the things when you create the design, sometimes you don't see the flow. So year after year, we would copy it, and then it would be our run. When I hired the new router, after the other router, departed the district, I sat them down and explained to them what we're trying to accomplish in the district. Number one, what are our goals? And two, what was the billing methodology? I think once you understand the billing methodology from our contractor, you can better impact that number, and that's what it came down to. My staff prior to the change were all first student drivers at some point. And a lot of those runs were created a long time ago, and they had these secret combinations that bus 40 was the same for the last 25 years. I didn't care. At the end of the day, we wanted to be on time, we wanted to be efficient, and we wanted to reduce our empty miles to, reduce our propane spend, the wear and tear on the vehicles, and ultimately, when you look at it with the fresh set of eyes, we were able to lower our average run time per day for a vehicle by 0.55. And about an hour on the bus is $6 times 126 runs, 180 days, it's just north of $600,000 in that area. So a lot of it comes down to routing. We're built on a component of time and number of vehicles out there. And we're able to plug some of those holes in those routes because some of the runs year over year had gaps placed in it just in case. That's not my problem to fund that. That just in case is part of the 10 million that first student is receiving from us. So I pulled all those gaps out and told them they need to hire more standby drivers. We have 127 runs, we have 150 buses. They can keep up with the workload. So there are some changes in that sense where, the way we operate in the past changed drastically and we got some pushback, but, at the end of the day, they understood why we were doing it and they understood that was their responsibility. Along with that, having the staff in there, our staff, fortunately, cross-trained. They're open to learning the routing system. They're open to, getting familiar with our district and maps. And they were able to point out some things when they had the opportunity to look at it. So that has been a big hit, too. Stop year over year, we reduce them. Every time we look at a run, we get a lanes, we're looking at it and seeing where the stops are. There's been a lot of our stops at home, you know, make a lot of phone calls, get yelled at a few times, eventually you plug it on the map and it's going to stop. That got us over 8,500 stops when I first started. So, I mean, we're almost at the point where we drop 1,000 stops, which is 5:30 in the morning, 500 p.m. So we're making steps. What's the sweet spot? Who knows? You know, we'll have to look at each neighborhood and figure out what's best. Is it the front and the back? Is it the middle? Depending on the size of the neighborhood? Is there a dead end? Is there a cul-de-sac? What are the contributing factors on where we can stop? Is there a blind curve? You know, there's a lot of people in the area, but, you know, that's all for the future once we figure out how we want to go market with our stops. And routes, you know, we change the runs in different combinations. And, you know, the last thing is invoicing. In my previous job, we were required to audit every location under our belt quarterly. And it got old. We had accounts with 2 trucks. We had accounts with 125 trucks. But as a director, we had to go in there and audit it. So I used that same mentality here. When I came, I audited the bill. I saw the in time, I saw the out time. The one that looked out of whack, I pulled it up on GPS, took a week snapshot of what time they were leaving the yard and coming back. And if it was a half hour, we would call it out, somewhere an hour. And then the first month, I remember there were 17 extra hours times 22 days that we operated just by auditing the invoice. That's what we call a small game. And then eventually, they start doing the math correctly. So, you know, we'll periodically audit over and over again, but in the beginning, it was every month. I wanted to know what was going on and why we were getting billed. So prior to Hanover Research coming in and doing work here, I wasn't sure what our department should have looked like. So I went out to Bucks County, Montgomery. I joined the Montgomery Bucks County People Transportation Association. Started talking to people on how they staff. Some of them had their own private fleet. Some of them, you know, outsourced everything, part of it, special services, field trips, whatever it may be. During that conversation, I felt like, why does everybody have so many people? But, you know, I think we all feel like that at some point. But once we get the numbers behind it, I shared it with the group. At that point, it seemed like everybody that I spoke to only handled transportation. You know, no other functions but transportation. I think there was one other individual in a smaller school district that was a webmaster. But outside of that, that was kind of their core function. That's all they did. You know, I could relate to that guy, the webmaster doing registration. So we got a good laugh out of that. When Bob asked me about Hanover Research, asked me about the first time, I'm like, nah, not really. But then I was like, well, that's my research. Why don't we have the pros do it? The pros went out there. They spoke to 47 peer districts out there, and with some of them they did in-depth interviews. And, you know, with that research, it was, some of it was shocking, and some of it was very familiar to us. We do the same things. You know, we're not that unique. But we do offer a lot of different services that not all of them do, but we do most of them. So there's 3 main takeaways. I like to keep things very simple. So in our discussion with Hanover, tell us the 2, 3, 4 things that we really need to know that we can prove upon that somebody's doing better out there. Number 1, create a structured process and clear guidelines, change requests, and complaints. We did it. We created our web-based form. That was a no-brainer. We just needed a task to do it. We had to create time and work with the people that get better in that area. Organize transportation staff responsibilities so the director has time for strategic planning. We made the first step in that area. We brought individuals in that could handle the transportation and registration responsibilities that we have in the district. And, you know, I think, you know, as we go through this presentation, we'll talk about it a little bit more. And then, you know, consider reassessing core transportation functions. As I stated earlier, when I talked to everybody else, they basically only did transportation in their department. I'll go through these a little bit more quickly, and we have the PowerPoint deck provided by Hanover that we can share with you, but basically the first one says, we're doing a lot, and some people are too, you know, when it comes to services, daycare, early dismissal, specialized transportation. We do a lot of this on our own. We take pride in things just like special services on educating these students in our special service department. We also take pride in transportation by not outsourcing that to somebody else. We are a very hands-on district. When you outsource something to first students, they have a rule. They have a no-touch policy. That doesn't help busing in a kindergarten. That doesn't help a student that is agitated on the bus. Of course, they'll do some of it, but really, we need our staff that's trained to handle these students in the most appropriate way. And then from a bus driver standpoint, it's about kind of the staff we have there. We'll go into a different slide that kind of breaks it down a little bit more clear about staffing, monitors, and they talk about policies up here and safety concerns and how, and the different things that we learned through this. I guess one thing is average time since there was 45 minutes. They also did all instances and the rules they have with it. If you do all the reading, you come to find out districts have a lot of policies that they really don't follow. You know, there's so many exceptions out there that they'll say that this is the walk zone, but then they'll claim this road has it, they can't go this way, or, you know, they want to reduce the walk distance or how far the bus out. But we all have policies, we all have rules, but it sounds like from my conversation with my peers and from the study that we don't necessarily follow all of them. We have a 75-minute max bus ride. If I gave everybody a 70-minute bus ride, I would answer 1,000 phone calls a day and 2,000 emails. Next slide, please. And this talks about kind of parent requests. Some districts say safety only, some districts won't even change, and some people have online forms. I always like to share the story. I live in New Hope, my daughter goes there. Every year we have the joy of going onto our hack site. We click the PDF, you look up your address, it tells you what color bus, where's it gonna be. You scroll down, you get really excited, there's no PM time. Scroll all you want. Your kid will get home when they get there. I don't know what you think about it, it's crazy, but that gives you an idea of how different another district is. So, you know, when it comes to, you know, different things on how we operate out there, it's amazing what we do, or maybe it's more amazing what other people don't do. It depends on how you look at it. And you'll have the opportunity to go through all this. So we'll just go to the next slide. This is a breakdown of the 47 different districts they spoke to. This is asterisk on the fourth one down to 10,000. And that's where we fall in. And then also from square mile standpoint, 50 or more, we're about at that 75 mark. Central Bucks about at 125 mark. And those are kind of the peers that are out there and who we spoke to. I typically want to compare ourselves to districts of similar size, and that you'll see in the Hanover research study. This talks about staffing right here. You know, if you look at the far left, it says, you know, the salary is 2, but if you look over in the 10,015, it's 1.6 salary. And then again, from an hour standpoint, 2.4. If you look at all of here, 3.2 if you look specifically in our category. So now the good part, the future. I want to briefly talk about, you know, kind of what we've accomplished in 3 years, and then go into where I think we should go. So we were able to create a stronger team, and that's been wonderful, I think, for my department, Bob's group, and then also for the community. We upgraded the routing software, which is key to finding efficiencies and understanding what we can do to improve our transportation network. We improved our transportation website. Now I think it's more useful, and I think down the road it's going to be even more useful. I think the more people we track, the more feedback we get, and the better we'll be together. Build a strong relationship with first students. I can sit here and pretend we don't have to, but we only had one bidder. So when you have one bidder, let's make the best of the situation out there. We're at that point that when we sit down at the table, we're asking them about best practices. We're challenging them to come up with a scorecard and a way to measure our business. They're telling us in corporate that they're working on a scorecard. I can't believe that the largest student transportation provider in the world probably doesn't have a scorecard for their customers. They don't. But they're working on it. So they want to make steps in the right direction. They want to retain their customers, which is good to know. When I first got there, I didn't think they cared if we had us or not. But now we feel value, and I think they're interested in growing with us, partnering with us, and then maybe being maybe one of their showcase locations down the road where we're using their technology, using their scorecard. They have this great story to tell that it wasn't really good, now it's wonderful. And hopefully in 10 years from now, we don't care if there's only 1 or 2 bidders, because we'll have a contractor that we trust and that we know we can depend on. Reducing costs, allowing that's always going to be a focus for us. Our money is better spent in the classroom. It's as easy as that. And then of course, adding value. And later in the slide, I'll go about adding value. This, you know, this part right here that goes into staffing is more about the want, it takes, and there's a lot of things that we can give to the whole process. So I wanted to compare, there's two scenarios that, you know, after reviewing with Bob and the leadership team, make the most out. If you go to the Hanover research, basically supports it, but on the left-hand side, it's our current org structure. Class 2A, there's one person and everybody reports into them. And then on the right side, this scenario adds a supervisor, and it also upgrades the position. The one thing I've learned through conversations and research is a district this size should have two routers. Easiest way to break it down is one for the big buses, which is the majority of our students, and one for the smaller buses, our non-public. Two different views, two different ways to route, and it's a very important. I think that we separate those so they can find the efficiencies within those networks and then collaborate when necessary. Right now, 685 trips are dropped on one individual on paper. Realistically, we're all doing it. I route. I spend a lot of time routing. Transportation secretary, the registration secretary, routing, moving stops, daycare. That's the only way we're going to get it done. But at the end of the day, we're just getting it done. That's all we have time to do. There's not enough talent in each of these areas to get ahead, to analyze the data and find those issues down the road.
I want to stop because I need to tell you a story about TransFinder and Andy, and he shared an email with me because like everywhere else where he sets expectations high, TransFinder, he sets expectations pretty high too, and he's showing them error reports on things that are making errors for him as he's doing his job. The response they got was, well, he wrote to me and he said, I guess I'm a dork. But they wrote to him, and their support group said that he's the most proficient user of TransFinder they have in the whole company. He said no one knows who's more proficient than him, and his keystrokes through the system are what's causing the system to error out. The person that was trying to replicate it couldn't replicate it because he couldn't go as fast as Andy. But that's just something that...
Maybe you shouldn't buy basic anymore.
So I need to tell that because it's just typical of Andy.
I think it's TransFinder. What's their coverage?
I had to get the exact number on you, how many districts they have. They're nationwide, out of Albany, New York, they only do the transportation route software. So very focused. And that was one of the main reasons I went with them, of course, is obviously Tyler knew his portfolio, but we're such a small percentage of that going there, they've been phenomenal.
When we looked at transportation providers, TransFinder was one of the top 3 in the country provided that just did transportation. And that was one of Andy's focuses. He didn't want somebody that did this and 14 other things. He just wanted all they do. And I think it was one of the top 3.
Yeah, they were top 3 at the time. They were just going to come in and try to sell you guys more stuff, so we just got exactly what we ran.
They can't keep up with you.
So on the left side, it says director of transportation. It could be any title, but that's the term they use in the research studies. But it's somebody to oversee the whole department. And the recommendation here, I guess we go to the next slide.
Well, Andy, I want you to stop there real quick. Why it's important for the title? Explain what happens to you.
So after I faced with the decision, most of the times when I had to tell the person you can't move the top for that reason, they quickly say, I think you're supervisor. So when you're titled supervisor, they already think there's 4 levels above you, and they want to keep taking it up there. So a lot of times, the decision that we make not to give a stop or make an exception is on our website. The rules are there, but they don't want to hear being transportation supervisor. And unfortunately, for that reason, Bach is inundated with a lot, and the board has a time to do it properly. And will it change? I believe so. My recommendation not to make this person a cabinet member is it's a title change. That way, people believe they have the authority to decline a request. So on the next slide, it kind of breaks down how was the 225 spent. You know, the greatest is supervisor at having that person oversee the daily operations of the business, the drivers, our contractor, our monitors, you know, and just making sure that that's taken care of, allowing that individual that oversees the whole department to do more of the strategic planning, to dive into the special projects that we have, like redistricting and things like that. It's affordable for that time. But when you look at the scenario on the left-hand side, this breaks down kind of where all the costs are going. Supervisor is a pure ad, so that's a salary benefits package. That's the biggest portion of it. From there, there's a portion of central registration, moving out of transportation and being part of either various groups or different groups that hasn't been discussed, I guess, in full detail with me yet, but letting us focus purely on transportation so we can make the best decisions for Administrative 3, moving to a router, like I stated earlier, we need 2 routers here. I spend a large amount of time, and the rest of the non-routers spend a lot of time routing. And then Administrative 3 to Administrative 4. When we went out to market to hire, there were over 30 candidates that applied, which was a wonderful turnout. I think we interviewed over 20 of them. These 2 individuals were well qualified, and in some cases overqualified. But when they came into the department, the job description that they had is a piece of paper. They came in, they started routing, they started getting every transportation registration assignment there. Their Microsoft Office skills are pretty solid, where I'm able to handle some of the reporting. In some cases, they're analysts for me also. So to have them in that admin 3, I truly don't feel it's the right title for the type of responsibilities that they have every day.
Let me just explain it's really Secretary 3, and then there's a Secretary 4. I believe they're the only Secretary 3s in the central administrative offices. All other, it's a broad area, like the people that work in accounts payable and all that, they're all class 4 rather than 3s. These people have skills and responsibilities equal to theirs. I will tell you, and I'll be very honest with you, with the overtime and our estimates on the savings of overtime, we knew we could fit class 3s and make it work financially. We weren't going to be able to make the change and be able to show you guys the numbers. We would have been spending more, and we didn't prove anything to anyone. I'm trying to show you the leadership that Andy has had is proving where we are. But the team he has there, these secretaries are excellent. He's built an unbelievable team. But I will tell you, they're looking who class 4 positions are available, because they're not going to sit there and be a class 3 all the time. So we have an internal competition there, and he's built this team. He's built the culture downstairs that wasn't there before, and that culture can go sideways very quickly. He's got a great team, and I support at the very, very, very least to do the moving up to a class 4 and also a router.
I hear the point. I don't take exception to it. The concern I have is, if one of those persons were to leave, the person who would come in to replace them would come in as a 4 or as a 3. I'm trying to understand, is it the position is rated to be X and Y, or is it the person grows in the position and the position grows? Meaning, I hire people who are programmers, and after a certain time and duration and abilities increase, and they become a senior programmer. And that's kind of my question here, which is it the person in the spot because of experience, duration, is in location promotion, or is it the spot?
I think it's the job specs. The job specs that are there are much more consistent with a level 4 than a level 3.
I asked that same question today, and the response, my first question was, is it the same job should be banded the same as the others? Yes, it should be. The residual benefit to that is retention of those people. And oh, by the way, if you want to bring people of the skill that are in there now, if they happen to leave at some point, we're going to pay more for them anyway. They're going to have to if we want the right kind of skill, which goes back to that. It should all be the same piece. So, I was supportive of that as well.
I hear you say it. but it goes back to, and it's probably a discussion we can have separate from this, which is a hiring practice and kind of, I'm not clear on what the review process is for new hires into roles. Meaning, is there a 90 or 180-day review that says after 90 days, it's not working? Because
I get a whole different conversation, I think.
yeah, it is, but you understand what I'm saying.
Boxes.
I understand, this is a skill set that either, when you come in, you know, you either, how do you get the skill set and do you demonstrate it? Because after half a year or after the first year, 180 days, do you actually have it because you're cutting the mustard? Or I don't want to be, the problem I have.
I think it's about this.
I hear you, but my issue is
About boxes.
working with the,
Boxes.
I understand, working with the union, I sometimes have a different problem, which is the incumbent.
We're getting off track.
I hear you.
Let's get back to the presentation.
Well, I understand you, but the issue comes to be, you're asking for the promotion, I'm trying to understand, is regrading the position, and how do I, and that's what it is, but how do I protect in the future, because people do move on. And I don't want to pay a premium for persons who aren't cutting the mustard. Here, these are great people, I'm good, but
I don't know if you need to go into this or not, but if you would look at how Andy has dealt with his team and the feedback, the constant feedback he has given to the team, you would be amazed. They knew what their expectations were and his
they were
vision.
into it.
Yes, but he's had many, many individual meetings with them saying, you've been good at this, you need to work more at this. He's
I
Really
understand.
Jerry, to
Okay.
answer your question, new hires, if it's known up front, they need to be on a 90-day probation, they're hired on 90. Because the people I've hired in my department have been on 90-day probation, so the answer to that question is, you can hire them. And then Christine has been working with the job descriptions as people leave in the job. We've been modifying the job descriptions to more accurately reflect the work that the people need to be.
And then you're grading the 90 days based on the new.
Yep.
Great. Then that's.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Sorry,
This one, Ron.
clicking on the job.
So, what do we get out of this, is the big question, you know, adding headcount, obviously there'll be a lot of discussion around, but what do we get out of this? And for the person that is leading the department, I think there's a lot of things they should be doing, and for me, I race around and try to get as much as I can, but there are some areas that we haven't. We don't have goals yet. Our goal every day is to do the best job we can, but we should probably set numbers for that. We should probably have a better way of understanding our performance. We need to create a scorecard internally and also with our supervisors. And here's the IDP, individual development plan, TIP, whatever you guys want to call them. I don't think it's ever really done in my department in the past. I sat down with all my employees at 30, 60, and increments after that. I wanted to provide them feedback. These were new positions. They were new to working in this environment. One individual came from a brokerage company, knew about trucks and wheels, but that's about it. They never transported students. The other person came from accounting department, and one was a office manager in a medical facility or clinic. So I remember when I started here, and it was important to have that feedback and understand what was the direction of the department, what's the direction of this, district, and what were the goals out there. So throughout that, I went over wonderfully with them, happy that they never had youth in other positions. So it went over well, I kept them motivated, and it also allowed me to provide both positive and feedback and also opportunities for them in areas to focus on. And with our software out there, we were able to either assign training or get them one-on-one help, and that's how they became so proficient with Transpire at such a quick time. Just so you know, these two individuals, one started a week before last school year, and the other one started 2 weeks before last school year. So I'm surprised they didn't walk off the job. They're dedicated, they're loyal, they're hard workers. There's times where I thought, I'm not cut out for this. Now we're going on my 3rd school year, my 3rd year of life, so it's being your 44th hour on the job, and the phone hasn't stopped ringing, and we have 120 voicemails. It's eye-opening, but they stuck it out, and I think now they do enjoy what they do. They enjoy the people they work with, and I think a lot of it comes down to setting their expectations. When I sat down with them for 30 days, they're like, are you going to fire me? I'm doing a horrible job. I said, you're doing a wonderful job for what you know, and you're going to learn more and grow from this experience. The second is the district. Like, when I came here, I felt like one of my previous positions where we all had a certain role. We were siloed a little bit. transportation was called upon when something was on fire. Leading into the last 2 years, we sat down with special services to better understand, do these routes make sense? Are there students on here that can't ride together? I would not know that. I'm not in the classroom and sitting down with Becky, Chuck Lambert's team, Amy Baxter, they've been wonderful. We created a spreadsheet together to better understand what are their transportation needs. It's on a shared drive. Before that, it was tribal knowledge or guessing. So now we have more of a playbook going into it. Athletic trips, field trips, bunch of papers going everywhere. That wasn't the right approach. We moved to TransFinder, but there's ways to make it better. We have a requester, an approver, and there needs to be a third approver. How do we get better in that area so everybody has the visibility to what we're doing, where their kids are at, and the money that we're spending? Transportation network analysis, I think it's important. You know, I think it's important for the director or the lead person here to be able to explain why it's set up a certain way. Why do we use transfers for New Jersey schools? Why would we don't do it for other schools going to Philadelphia? And analyzing that, sharing that with the leadership team to better understand what direction do we want to go in. Understanding the cost involved with late buses and all that other good stuff that we do for our community. Do we want to add a 5 or get rid of the 4 with the kids? Communication plan, I've been working closely with Susan and Brady. Every time my phone rings at an odd hour, I am very nervous. It happened from the first day I worked in trucking. I assume we hit something. But once that happens, and it will happen, that's just the nature of the beast, what do we do? I just print a report, I run out the door, first red light, or when I get to the spot, I'm texting them, telling that vehicle how many kids and what we need to do next. That is a horrible plan. There needs to be more people involved. Susan and I have been working closely together on, is it minor, is it major, how do you define it? What is the role of the building principal? What is the role of the cook? Who in campus is doing what? In the event there's an injury, who's going to the hospital? I went the first time. I was lost for it. As I'm driving to St. Mary's, I'm like, what do I need to say? I wasn't trained on this, and now we're getting to the point where we all have a higher level of comfort. And I think it's very important, even if a bus is 10 minutes late, if we get an accident, we need to have something in place, a guideline, the first few steps, and all the players need to know what to do. On top of that, safety policies and education. We've dabbled a little bit when we have the opportunity, the partnership with Upper Makefield, but there's so much more we should be doing. Why isn't there more around the safety training for the kindergartners? A discussion I had with Mark, he asked me, it was Sherman in our 10 elementary schools. Outside of that, nobody ever wants an introduction to a bus. You know, and why is that? I think the bus can be kind of scary for people going to school. Why aren't we pushing that a little bit more? All I get is, hey, can you bring a kindergarten bus out here at this time for orientation? The answer should be yes, and I'll provide a certified state trainer to go in there and walk each parent and family member through how we operate to give them a level of comfort. We are one of the safest leagues out there, and we should take pride in that. Technology, the website maintenance we've already talked about, that's an ongoing, we want to continue to improve that. TransFinder has a lot of different options within that we can use, tracking systems. Everyone wants to know where the bus is, but there are flaws to this system. Does TransFinder have a better one? Safe stop. Give this individual time to look at that. Is there a system out there that integrates a camera system? How does that work? Is it on cloud? Do you have to be on a cell card? Or is it when you break a geofence, you get on a wireless and down for 30 minutes? How do we manage that? What is that worth to the district and cost? You know, some people always ask me, well, why don't we have cameras on every bus? It's a good question. You know, and you can answer it 100 different ways. But at the end of the day, I've worked and spoken to people either at conferences or they come into our people transportation meeting and learn more about it. And I think when I have more time, or as soon as we have more time, we'll be able to dive into it deeper and figure out what is the best solution for what we have in place. TransFinder, Sonar, which camera company, and how we utilize that technology. From the external side, the bids, you know, we just went through the van bid, we also went through propane bids, and, you know, I think these are big spends for the district. I think more time should be spent on them. I think we do a really good job sharing information with other districts that have gone through it. But I was new to it. I reached out to Bob, we reached out to other people, some people that he worked with in the past on how do we create a propane bid? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, how do we lock this in so it benefits the district the greatest? And I wish I had more time. I think we did an excellent job after looking at the numbers, and when we have the numbers and was a gap between some of the bids out there, and I think we secured a very good price. But, you know, spending more time on things like that will end up being dollars saved. And then, like I said earlier, you know, contract management, we've improved in that area, but there's more to do there. We have to babysit our contractors at the end of the day. We have to set the tone and the guidelines for how we operate in Council Rock. It's not the same as Central Bucks, it's not the same as New Oak, they're all first students, but we have different goals, different agendas, and we have a different service level to our community. That's fine, the right side is the same as all of them. Scenario B, it keeps the same head count. It removes transportation out so we can focus more on transportation.
You mean registration?
Registration out, I'm sorry, and focus on transportation. And still have, and then upgrade 2 positions. We still need the second router. If we don't get the second router, it's almost impossible for the person in charge of the department to find these same efficiencies or these big gains like we've had in 2 years. And at the end of the day, that's a huge focal point for my department is providing more services and reducing costs of process.
That is one less secretary and one more router. It isn't a router on top of the staff. I'm sure.
And here is a breakdown, just like in the other scenarios, where the cost goes. The biggest cost is funding the central registration outside of parents. And then the increase between the 2 positions are second and third on the list.
Central registration, help me understand, that's actually the introduction of new students, that's
Yes.
unrelated to transportation.
Yeah,
That's correct.
Anyone
That's
who
why
moves
it
into the
resides.
district.
That's fine, I just wasn't clear that's what that was, it used to be a Lambert's group.
A lot of districts have their own central registration department, they're living in Illinois.
So in this scenario, basically, it's all daily operations, like when there's somebody, there's only one supervisor and everybody is asking them questions to make the decision, you know, is the registration secretary the right person to make a decision about transportation? Is it the router? Ultimately, it goes to the supervisor, who knows the policies and what the expectations from leadership team make.
Let me explain what happened today. Andy and I needed to go over all this. We made some changes based on some discussions we had. And last night, unfortunately, one of the bus drivers, I guess, passed away, had a heart attack at home, and it disrupted the staff at First Student. There were some issues with transportation today, and Andy was at his desk trying to get back to people about issues today. So that's the type of day Andy has, depending on what's going on. And he came up, but he kept running down to handle stuff. And then in the afternoon today, there was a misstep with a sports transportation trip. And he's running up, and we had to make decisions on that. We bothered Robert about it. And that's just his day, that he doesn't know what it is. And that was just today. And it was important today because he and I had to finish this up before tonight.
Well, I think the point is, with one supervisor, you don't have the capacity to manage the day-to-day and take advantage of all the things that we need to do. I mean, it goes back to the conversation we have about succession, we talked about finance. It makes sense to, and this is my perspective, I'm kind of speaking here, is to make an investment that saves the district money and or raises the service level, you know, rather than trying to be so tight you can't get to the price. So that's the kind of how we operate now. We're not taking advantage of the resources we have, because we've got to tie down the.
It's all technical, well done.
How many more slides do you have? Just ask.
4?
Okay.
My guess.
Okay.
So here are the policies that we have in place for the playbook that was handed off to me.
We are now changing gears.
Yeah. So now I want to talk a little bit more about the policies we have here, because they're not real guidelines at the end of the day. If we say it's okay for a student to walk 0.5 elementary in 1 mile, I feel like that is a large number based on feedback I'm getting from the community. We can change that, we can lower that, and I think the impact of transportation won't be great by doing that. I'm saying we should lower the wall distance above that. I think that's an opportunity for us to look at our network again and figure out when we go in this neighborhood where we should stop to achieve that. I looked at a neighborhood with Derek earlier today, and there was 5 stops in a quarter mile. We've also swung on the other side by making all these exceptions, and we need to just have a real rule or a guideline that we stand behind and say, for an elementary age student, or K through 3, it's 0.2. 4 through 6, it's 0.4. 7 through 12, not 3/4 miles maximum.
Andy, are these policies or administrative regulations? What's that?
810 policy.
These are the 800s? They're coming up, we'll probably get to these January, February timeframe?
Location of stop, not really a policy. This is verbiage on the old website that said secondary students come in the neighborhood, elementary go in. In some scenarios that makes sense, in other scenarios it doesn't. It's not a bad idea that I go in some neighborhoods and pick up in the front and back because I got to turn around anyway. So let's really look at this and make sure that the reasoning behind it makes sense. We can still serve our community at a very high level and still be able to go into these neighborhoods and achieve that for a secondary student. Right time, 75 is huge. I get yelled at 45, you know, and what should that number really be? We know through a lot of resources, right, Town Richmond Middle, that, you know, we can get a certain numbers. There is a cost to that. We just have to understand what is the number we're most comfortable with. Should there be a right time for K through 2? Or are we going to group K through 6 all together in one bunch in elementary? And that's what I recommend, that we do lower the numbers in both the scenarios, because I don't have any run at 75 minutes within district. It's 75 minutes within district plus out of district time. And we could easily lower that number. We have a lot of exceptions out there, joint custody, the 5-day rule, the daycare. I think it needs to be revisited. There's a daycare rule I read that was a quarter of a mile. We go to daycares outside. It was never policed. And do we need to go to all these daycares? Because when it was probably put in place, there's only 2. Now there's 7 in the sending area. Do we need to have 7? Do we need to have 4 that we offer? And just understanding what the balance is there. Joint custody, there was a court case out there that said if it's 50-50 shared legal and they're in the district, we must provide transportation. What if it's not? And both parents live in the sending area and they're existing stops. Should I say you can't do it? So for me, if
I don't understand it. So is that the both parents in the district, one parent in the district, one parent not in the district?
both parents are in the district, so mom and dad, let's say, are in Newtown, the sending area. We dropped dual transportation years ago, and then when they made that decision with the court ruling, we required a custody agreement, 50-50 somewhere in there stating that before we gave the non-primary address transportation. If it's already there, and I have to pack in the bus, why stop it?
No, Andy, that doesn't have to be in the attendance area. They have to live in the district. So if one lives in the Welsh attendance area and the other lives in the Newtown attendance area, we have to take that Welsh student to the Newtown attendance area.
Based on my understanding of it, we would, because of the scenario where this one happened, it was in one high school, one middle, and I believe one elementary. It was the whole sentence. But the way we've always treated is, if you're outside the sending zone, you're the first picked up and the last dropped off. Make sure that the students that are in the sending zone get, well, we're not passing 100 houses to drop somebody off 10 miles away. And some people aren't fine with that, but they understand the reason, the rationale behind it. So not everybody's going to want to jump up and say, why not? My fourth grader wouldn't mind taking an hour and a half ride. So,
What do you mean by the 5-day rule?
so when I came here, because of our unsophisticated transportation system, it only allowed you to lose the primary in there. So we would say you can go from home to school or daycare to school as long as it's the same place 5 days a week. The PM can be different, where you could go to grandma's house, but it would be grandma's house 5 days a week. we go to different places in the sending area. You could go to KinderCare 3 days, or you could go home 2 days. We have the ability to create exceptions to put them in there, and because our staff has this information on their computer, they can pull it up. In the past, they did not have access to Edgelog. Edgelog was for user ID and lockdown download software on your desktop. Here, any secretary or anybody with field trips has visibility to the whole school. So they can see on Tuesdays where little Jimmy needs to go. And at the middle school and the secondary level, they're able to go and bust themselves. This is more, I think they did it to protect themselves, our student safety and accountability for the youngest students.
So the existing, I was going in the same thing as Denise, so the existing rule is 5 days.
5 days.
And you're suggesting that we amend that to be more flexible?
I think with all of the requests that come in, and knowing the technology and the fact that we just train our staff with field trips, that they have access to it.
Right.
And we are not charged for any additional user for the site that we have that populates this information for them. So now we don't have a reason, well, we have less reason to say no. And then the last one I want to talk about is the appeal process. And this ties into kind of the title and saying no. There's 2 events I think of right now, and one was many phone calls, many emails, PennDOT on site, and the last phone call I had was can you ask PennDOT what the rationale was behind this big stop? Can you request the ruling or how they came to the decision and what time they went there, because it had to be during the bell time. This was hours and hours of my time. At the end, I spoke to Bob about it, and we politely asked, if you need that information from PennDOT, here's my contact. Here's their contact information, you can follow. I don't want to be the person that tells PennDOT how to do their job. We need them in so many areas of our life that when we do look at walk zones or look at hazardous roads, they're out there quickly assessing it for us and giving us a response. There's many stories like that, just slightly different, but at the end of the day, I think it's important that we are able to have an appeal process that's clear and fair to the community. Right now, I say no, and then they call me back, and then I say no again, and they call me back, and they want to talk to Bob or and email me back. There should be a better way to handle those type of situations. You know, at the end, like my first job, I always remember my boss saying, and it didn't make sense to me at the time in college, and happy I was getting a paycheck, where he said, to be the best, serving the best. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to make me truly happy in an environment, is to really do the best we can as a team for an exceptional group of people. In my time here, I've had great experiences working with the teachers, the schools, the students, the family, and that's what it really comes down to. You know, we're focused on continuous improvement. At the end of the day, if I just have to do the same thing every year over and over again, and just cookie cutter, it's not a good mental place for me. I want that challenge. I want to be able to bring those to your attention and make decisions on whether we want to go down that. And we created momentum for change. We changed our software. We changed how we handle different things out there. My team's all about it. I usually spend a lot of time informing them on the why, so they can also feel those questions. I think when they understand the why, it's a lot easier to push them. Rewarding positive behavior has been a big thing in my office. You know, when they do something great, I like to recognize it. I share with Bob. Bob made a lot of visits down to my office and thanking them for their time, what they're doing, their dedication. And then, you know, another big thing that we've pushed lately is just collaboration. We're in the basement, we're not at school, so we try to get out there for ESY. We're out there in the morning and afternoon, just making sure all the students know where to go, assist the staff. You know, and then special services, we've been on a lot of great things with them too. And the last thing is a big thing is leading with integrity. Like, at my time here, when I see something that just doesn't feel right, I want to talk about it, discuss it, and just better understand it, and just do what's best for all of our students out there at any given
time. One thing I want to tell you, just something that was very interesting to me, transportation dreads the first day of school, because no matter what, the phones are ringing off the hook. You're not sure what it's going on and everything else, and answers aren't real clear for people. And you don't always have the information. Well, Andy had the whole staff excited about it, because they all had a buffet where he brought different foods in and everything else, and it was at the center of the room. He invited people down, and they could at least enjoy their food at their desk while they're answering the phone and all that. And it made their feeling about the day a little better. And he amazes me in so many ways. I hope today's presentation, yours, amazes as much as I am. But I hope you see it's a good news story. There are still going to be issues. It's 12,000 kids that we're trying to get home in school every day. We are depending on so many people, so many levels of, but all in all, I feel much more comfortable about transportation this year than I have in past years. So Andy can get back up and start talking about what's next for us.
So, you know, we've gone through a lot of information, just where we started, where we're going, and really, you know, just want to understand what is the direction now. That now that we've reviewed it and hopefully understand, and, you know, for the transportation staff, we presented two scenarios. So, one, with a director or manager overseeing the whole group, supervisor handling the day-to-day operations, two routers, one specific to big, one specific to small, and then the position for class 3 and class 4. Scenario B, quick summary, is just same number of people, just different hats in the office.
All right, so what are you looking for from us today as a board? So policy, I think, is a pretty simple direction, right? So you've got that on schedule already for January, February? Is that
January, February timeframe, depending on.
And that gives Andy time to touch base with Ed and work through that, and
we'll
hammer out.
figure out,
Okay, the structure on who's
the
involved.
meeting is
Yeah.
that wants to get together,
Okay.
Andy and Bob,
Yeah.
and Robert wants to be there, but yeah, that's pretty
Okay.
straightforward.
So then the looming discussion or decision we have is how we're going to handle transportation department staffing going forward.
Well, the bottom one, so you're talking, the bottom one's pretty easy too, right?
Yeah,
I'm-
that is,
I have the appeal process.
yeah.
I kind of thought that would flow through policy.
Both of those.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Well, what that is actually setting up a committee. It'll be organized in a way you want. I don't know if parents would be involved. I don't know if the school the school board would want to have a member there. I'm kind of thinking that maybe it would have like that one or something, but also have administrators, and we would have specific guidelines on an appeal process and a decision-making where Andy makes the decision, transportation makes the decision, where can I go now? Oh, we have an appeal board that you can go to this appeal, and that is your due process. That's where you're going to provide your information, and that's where the final decision will be made. I think it's something that the board can step away from the political issues that you have with requests, and there's a process. Here you go. This is who's going to make the decision. They make the ruling on all of the decisions like that. It's not arbitrary. It's some type of due process. And I'm thinking that at least stops the third and fourth phone call to Andy. It becomes, you'll be put on the appeal process, and we will meet at the beginning of the year, maybe every 2 weeks or whatever. And as the year goes on, maybe we would slow that or distance everything.
I would say, if I hear it, I would tell you, I would do that. The modality I would use for that would be the same modality as Board of Assessment Appeals, which is, he's already written the decision on what he's doing about it, and then there's a list of 4 people on the board or whatever. They review the documentation, person can submit their written appeal, and it's just, they either agree to have a hearing or they don't, and that's where it goes. Because otherwise, you're gonna be sucked into meetings, and it's gonna be on calendars.
Okay.
Do it as a paper thing, that if the people on the review board check off that they do want to grant the hearing, then it's granted, otherwise it's supported. It's the same way you do Board of Assessment.
So that's something we can handle in policy as well? Would that sit well on that committee? Probably, yeah, okay, so you guys.
Policy should help eliminate them. That's,
The goal,
Yeah.
prevention in the first place.
I just believe that you guys will get more if there's not some type of due process.
Mhm.
That's the only reason I would say that, because, they will come to you,
Well, they're coming to us anyway.
Yeah.
We're still gonna get the phone call, but now we can say, hey, listen, it's a consistent process. And, we don't make exception to that process. And
It also allows the board, it allows the board to, otherwise, who responds to the board? That's always been the challenge,
If the policy's strong enough, it's gonna be like our, like the, disciplinary situations we have. Policy's strong, the administration makes a recommendation, and then it comes to us when it's really, really necessary. It should come to that committee should convene once or twice a year, probably, that's it, right? So the direction you need from us on the other, issues. So you need board direction on what from us?
I would like to know the best, option is A, I believe.
that's your recommendation.
Yes,
Okay.
And what's your timing for that recommendation? Is it
I would like,
is it mid-year, mid-budget, if you will, or is it at the beginning of the next budget cycle?
I would like to,
Well, what would you third up? Yesterday, but that's not like, so that's my question, is it mid, meaning now, or?
I would like to get the authority to start looking for people in the positions. And should we not find the people in the right positions, I think we'd have to come back to you and say, we want to revamp what we want for the lake.
Well, let me say this another way, because I asked the exact same question today. They have found efficiencies in this year's budget based on the savings they've gotten over time and how they budget. So this is already paid for, this structure in this year because of the efficiencies there, if we wanted to take it. So my personal point of view is let's start to lock this down quickly. And as they start to, if this group feels that they'll approve the structure, let them go build and go forward. And as they build things and run through it, they need to talk to us about something great. Otherwise, let's give them the ability to go. It's already funded.
In the next section, when you see what happened this year, you're going to see where transportation underexpended their budget. Last year, they overexpended their budget, so you're going to see.
So how it's gonna come to us is in approving the position.
Personnel.
It's not about structure, that's all you guys. And I think it's a great plan, and to Andy's point, it's basically self-funded. So we want to be able to draw more opportunity, more efficiency out of you, and by making you a director of transportation, whatever that is. We're gonna, it's a benefit.
I think it's an easy decision.
Let me just jump in real quickly, to say two things. One is I completely support the recommendation for scenario A that's up here. The other piece that I would be remiss to not say is that when we get to budget season, I will be requesting an additional administrative position. It will be in the form of a supervisor of special education. We are just ridiculously lean in that department. Andy right now is in the same boat. He's not able to do the strategic work. Chuck Lambert right now, Dr. Lambert is not able to do the strategic work. So I just want to say this before we put the hay in the barn.
Go ahead.
Is there more to a presentation or?
Not much.
Okay, so here's my question. And since I was the fall guy on the free lunch program, I'm gonna ask you a question, which is heresy, but relevant, I hope. We do some things that are above and beyond what we are required to do under state law. We provide service. You have turned this from providing a base minimum service into really providing a premier service. And my question is, are there aspects of what we do that we should not be doing as a base service that should be at a fee? The example, by example, there may be 100 reasons why it's wrong. Our obligation is to take a child from their home to their school and back to their home. I don't know that our obligation is to take them to daycare. And we do it as a service.
Jerry, I think the question
So my
is,
query is,
but for me, it's, we don't know what we don't know, so let's get the structure in place so we can answer.
I'm putting forward, I'm not gonna be here when you get all this done, so my query is, are there add-ons, are some of the services we provide now in excess, and should there be charges?
And that's probably,
Charge
You're not taking.
I would, that would be a solicitor's opinion.
So I put it forward as a question. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, so, and that's something that Andy can work on in this role, that if we choose to create it for him. It's a good question. So, does anyone, just look around the table, does anyone have an objection to Bob and Andy and Robert moving forward on this at least in theory, and then we're going to have to,
Even though they.
well, we can't vote on it anyway.
Your special ed.
Well, we voted on it, what are you here?
Next
Your personnel.
In personnel, we're voting at the board meeting. We're just looking
From
for
a
a
hiring
board.
standpoint, we're better positioned.
Are you okay with this? Okay. All right, do you have what you need?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, Andy.
You know what, I want to thank him personally because, I'm serious about this. I was sweating out there worrying that buses weren't going to show up, buses were going to go wrong, and,
He's not going to get out the door.
it was, it was sweating, I was dripping.
I'd like to not have this part on the YouTube because I think that when people hear Andy, we're gonna lose it. So, I think the presentation was, I won't, but I would be proud to have hired you to my organization to do some of the things you could hear to organizations I've been in part of.
Yep, great job.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry how much time I took.
That's okay.
All right, it only took an hour. We would have.
They won't ask you back tonight.
That was the plan.
Okay, so we do have one more item.
Yep.
So, results of operation.
This is what I do every year. Understand the auditors just left on Friday. I still owe them some information about the self-insurance fund, but I believe these numbers are very, very tight. But for instance, I made almost a $500,000 change today because we just got a reconciliation with our special ed IU services today. So, but these are the most up-to-date numbers. So let me explain what it is. Board members that have been here before have seen this exact same thing last year. This is the 2017-18 budget. This is the revenues budgeted, the expenditures budgeted. And remember, we had a deficit of $4.2 million. We expected that, and we knew that it was going to be there. If all the revenues and all the expenditures came in perfectly, our fund balance would have went down to $19,885,000. You see that? But because of past experience, revenues came in a little higher, expenditures came in a little lower. So we usually make up about $4 million, so we've always been comfortable. This year we have another $4 million, a little less than this. So what happened is instead of the budget of $229 million, we had $232 million come in, a difference of $3.2 million to the good. Understand that's a 1.42% difference. It isn't a 9% difference. It isn't, it's a very tight difference. Expenditures, $233 million, $232 million, $1.2 million. Again, that's under budget, so that's the good also. 0.55% difference in the budget. I think that's way too tight in my mind. So instead of, from operations, having a deficit of $4.2 million, we actually have a surplus of $335,000. So when you see these variances that we've seen each year, comes up about the $4 million, and that's why we're comfortable with that, okay? We've never budgeted for the operating transfer from the general fund, taking the cash from the general fund and putting it in the capital reserve fund. You will hear from Doug, as he has many summer projects that need to be done around the district, and he'll tell you that number should be $7 million. I'm telling you, we can barely afford the $3 million. So you see where we are there. Now that I'm putting that number in there, tonight I would like you guys to say, yes, I agree with $3 million, no, I don't agree with $3 million, because I want to start moving that way. That then, instead of having a surplus of $335,000, we're going to move this money out of the general fund into the capital reserve. So our fund balance is going to go down by about $2.7 million. Therefore, our fund balance at $24 million here is now $20,400,000. $21,400,000. It isn't the 19.8 like we budgeted. because this supported it. So do you understand that completely? You also understand unaudited, subject to change. I do not believe there's going to be any material adjustments to this, but there could be $100,000 here or there or something like that. And although that makes a big difference down here, when you look at these numbers, it isn't a big difference. And I want to make sure you always understand that, because this, to get to that number, these big numbers have to be analyzed real closely, and I just want to make sure everyone understands that these are the numbers that I'm trying to drive out when I get to this number. I always tell you guys that. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. Where are the increases in revenues? Why did the revenues go up? Well, real estate tax is $144 million we budgeted, $146 million we got. 1.5 million difference, 1.05% variance. As I tell you every year, that's the big number in our budget. We fund our district on real estate taxes. That is not a huge increase. It's higher, it's about $700,000 higher than normal. That is caused by either the collection rate going up higher than what I projected, 97.2%, or it's the assessed value going up higher than what I budgeted, and I used the January certification from the county. So between January and June, when our bills went out, that means our assessed value went up. I could analyze that with anyone that wants to look at it with me, but that's a good number. Earned income taxes. This looks great, but I'm going to show you that it isn't as good in the next slide. 16.5 million, it's always trailing where we are, because I don't know if it's going to continue going up the way it's going up. And I will show you the difference here. That went up, it's varies at 8.16%. You can say, Bob, it should be a little closer than that. That's a very, you have a bad economy, earned income tax could drop 30%. So, plan account reimbursement, we had some projects to be approved that weren't approved for a while. We got some more money, so that's good. State retirement, that's a function of the salaries we paid, and you're going to see what happened with them this year. Basic instructional subsidy, I always budget a little under, as you can see, it is a little under, based on what the governor has been proposing, and I don't know what the final budget is going to be, and we usually approve our budget before the final budget comes out from the state, so that's normal. Special ed subsidy the same way. State tuition reimbursement, I have to look, it's a big percentage, but this fluctuates greatly. It's not like we get 84,000 every year. It all depends on what kids are going where and all that. Delinquent tax collection, I was surprised at this. Our number has gone down. Probably because we have less delinquent taxes, and if you remember, a few years ago, we got rid of per capita tax. So we're no longer getting delinquent capital tax. I can't believe that's all of that number, but I could do a little more analysis on that. Interim real estate tax is another one that it went up last year to $1 million or something like that, so I put it up to 1.2, and it's back down a little bit. I can't give you the full answer on that either. Okay? Go ahead. This is, you see this every year, this is the earned income tax. I want to show you where it went, and you can see the way it jumped up in some years. Look at last year, when it went up 12.2% to 18.3. We moved it up. I didn't know it was going to go to 18.3, but we moved it up $200,000. Look at that. It went down 3% this year. That's why I always look at it and say, we can't just go up there because it may not stay up there. So we have some, I'm going to call it juice in it for next year that I think we can keep going up. But we really have to watch the trends that are going on, and that's why I want to show you this.
But despite it went down with collections, but it's still above your budget.
Yes, yes. Okay, this is the expenditure side. And if you remember last year, salaries and wages, we were like a negative 0.14%. So we were really tight, but we were to the good side. This year, we overexpended by $1.5 million, 1.656 up there, 1.44 off of our budget. I need to do some more analysis, and I'm gonna be able to show you by what bargaining group that happened. One of the things that when I show people this, everyone says, it's Masters 45, it's gotta be Masters 45, that more people moved over than we knew. I don't believe it's all of that. One thing that happened. What's that?
I'm moving down, sorry.
Okay. One thing I will tell you that happened last year is we started having contracted substitute services. So I moved money out of here down into the contracted area, and that could be some of the cause of this too. Okay?
We added some positions too, didn't we?
Pardon?
We added some positions too, didn't we?
There might have been 2 positions or something like that. So I need to do some more analysis in October. I'm thinking I'm going to be coming back to you and show you what contract it is, and I'm going to try to make some analysis so I can give you better information on that. And then the 300 and 900 objects, that's really how we spend our other money. Most of our budget you'll see is salary benefits, but this is everything from debt service to utility bills to supplies and everything else, and we underspent that by $2.9 million or so, 2.8, and it's negative 5.05. I will tell you that, well, I'm sorry.
What are other benefits that went up?
Other benefits, that's a, flex spending that people get extra. Cresta gets $250, a person gets into their employer paid flex benefits, and administrators get $750 and confidentials. And then a big part of that is severance payoff, where it used to be in the salary, but now the severance payoff is going into health reimbursement accounts, and they're going to 403Bs. So the severance pay, unused sick time, unused vacation time. So I would guarantee you most of that is that. Yeah, retirement, the severance payments we give them, it used to be through salaries, but now it's tax advantage for us and them, that we put it directly into 403B for the tax, the health reimbursement account. Okay. Okay, now this is in the 300 to 900 areas, you will see where we've under expended it. And this year, I just want to show you student transportation. Last year, if you remember, we overexpended student transportation by over $300,000. So that's almost a $700,000 swing if you look at performance of the budget. Debt service, if you remember, this was the year that I thought we were going to use $256,000. Remember the 4% I talked about and what the variable rate bonds really did? I would believe most of that is because of the variable rate bonds. We weren't paying 4%, we were paying 1.5% or something like that. So I bet you that's most of the reason why it's in good shape. Jerry, do you know what that number is?
Which is fund transfer?
Yeah.
Your sunlight insurance paid off from.
No.
Food
Yeah, the food service transfer that we authorized earlier this year. You remember that?
The first part was $750,000, or $835,000, yeah, I remember.
So
that.
anyway, that is it. Go ahead.
It's the bond, we've already gone over this.
Okay, we're good. That is the first look at it. Can you go back to the first slide on this section?
This one?
This one, no, no. Is everyone in agreement that, and this isn't gonna happen until October, where I'm gonna actually put it on the motion, because in October, we're gonna decide about, when we get the final fund balance number, we're gonna decide how we're gonna distribute the fund balance between all their components, and at the same time, that's when we decide on the transfer. Does everyone look like 3 million is the number? Doug, I'm sure, is gonna be able to show you that, there probably could be more. So, everyone, are you good with that?
I'm good with it, and we did 4 last year, didn't we?
We did more than that. But when we looked at what we did work.
Four and a half?
I'm good.
Yeah, we've got to take care of this property. I have no problem. Okay.
Yes, it's been a long meeting, a lot to cover. I hope you think, it's good news. I am very pleased with the way transportation's going, and I think you can see it on my face.
But it was about 480 under budget for last year, and the cost increase we're looking at is about 250. That's 480 versus 250.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was nearly a $700,000 swing from the year before because we had an overage of $300,000.
Yeah.
And then Yep. So there's really close to $700,000 in savings built in.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, anything else?
Quick exec session after.
Yep. We adjourn?
Yeah. After committee.
Finance Committee, you got anything else? No? Jerry? Meeting adjourned.